Welcome to the Grid Podcast, episode 38. Our goal is to educate and to bring hard-hitting truths about America's critical infrastructure. I'm your host, Maria Sumnicht. A quick disclaimer, political opinions expressed in the podcast by participants are their opinion and not necessarily that of the Grid Podcast. Please subscribe, share, and like. It will help reach more people on this platform. And don't forget to turn on the notification bell so you can be notified when we go live. Like today, it was a surprise. So today we're going to do something a little bit new. There's going to be a prologue before I introduce my guest because I want to tee up the topic of discussion. So as I see it, and I could be wrong, I've never claimed to be right, I don't think the following has been articulated clearly in the critical infrastructure community. We've been asking engineering questions about what is fundamentally an architectural problem. Those are different disciplines. Engineers optimize components, architects optimize systems. That's not a criticism of engineers, it's recognizing that resilience emerges from how components interact, not from any one component in isolation, such as transformers, inverters, etc. It is not just EMPs. It is not just cyber attacks. It is not just the electric grid, etc. For more than 2 decades, governments, utilities, researchers, and industry organizations have invested billions of dollars pursuing one objective, securing America's critical infrastructure. Significant progress has been made in strengthening individual technologies. We've improved our cybersecurity. We've hardened physical assets, and we're increasing awareness of emerging threats. Yet, despite these efforts, one fundamental question remains. Why does the nation continue to view its critical infrastructure as increasingly vulnerable? Perhaps the answer is not that we have failed to secure the grid. Perhaps the answer is that we have been attempting to solve an architectural problem through a series of independent engineering solutions. This podcast is going to challenge assumptions, not through rhetoric, through architecture. I think we need to introduce a new concept. I call it the resilience fallacy, and I define it as the assumption that strengthening individual infrastructure components necessarily produces a resilient infrastructure system. This new concept and its definition alone becomes a centerpiece because it explains 20 plus years of frustration in strengthening our critical infrastructure here in America and abroad too, because it's not just our problem, right? So with that said, I want to introduce to you my guest today, David Goldsmith, creative thought leader extraordinaire, critical out-of-the-box thinker. David is a builder of buildings, is not a builder of buildings, but of systems, economies, strategies, and futures. As the president and co-founder of Goldsmith Organization, David has advised clients in over 50 countries and is the executive director of Project Moonhut Foundation. He'll talk more about that. David is also the author of Paid to Think, a leader's toolkit for redefining your future, a must read, and it is available on Amazon. He is a sought-after TEDx TED Talk presenter, and David is a recipient of the Global Visionary Disruptor Award. Welcome, David. Why don't you elaborate a little bit more and tell the audience more about yourself, and then let's just dive in.
I prefer the diving in, so I'll give just a few
Okay.
data points. Yeah, it's tough. I don't like talking about myself in this way, but I can give you a few pieces, and it's kind of stuck in my head. So if it does sound that way, I've owned businesses my whole life. I ended up in multiple different industries: nanotechnology, aerospace, water and sewage construction, retail. I've lived in multiple countries. I lived in Hong Kong for 10 years. I lived in Europe. I have worked with the CEOs of Maersk, Dole, Tektronix, Infosys, Wipro, Illinois Toolworks, Ritchie Brothers, worldwide, worked in over 50 countries. And working to me is not speaking. A speaker goes to the great, nice hotel, travels to the top of the peak, and then comes down and says they work there. No, Bangladesh, Sri Lanka, Cambodia, Malaysia, Estonia, Latvia, Lithuania, Colombia, you name it, been around the world. So my perspective tends to be very worldwide and very interconnected. I don't know if that was good enough for you.
Oh yeah, no, perfect, perfect. So let's
Okay.
just dive right in because you and I have had discussions, and we're in meetings, and we see what the efforts that have been made, and you can look back through historical records and see
Mhm.
why hasn't anything been done? Why are we still here?
Well, it's not that, let me change the question. It's not why are we still here or why has nothing still been done. We have moved to a different place.
Hmm.
We have gotten things accomplished. It's the question is why isn't resilience or whatever that word may represents, why hasn't that been addressed to a point that people are safe or comfortable, whatever that may be, because that's relative to the individual. I think one of the I have this saying: the person who asks the best questions of themselves and of others are the people who are tend to be the smartest person in the room. Not to say I am, but asking a different question is what needs to happen here. So let's start with an overall premise. The minute you sent that over to me, I asked the question of myself, and the question was the comment that came to myself. I said, "Self, uh, let's say you're playing a football game, American football, could be soccer, whatever it is. What is the responsibility of the defense?" So I'm going
To,
to ask you,
okay,
what's the
to keep the opposing team from scoring, or
okay?
or to keep them off the field. Really, to keep the offense off the field would be
And
my.
I would say out of 100 people, about 100 people answer that way. Very few people answer it the way I think it should be answered. The responsibility of defense is to stop the offense and then to initiate offense. Their job is offensive.
Right.
Stop the person, they have a different set of skills, and then move it forward. And in every sport that you have with that type of dynamic, you never win a game playing defense.
Right.
Resilience is defense. It's a resilience game, is defense. So the question becomes, how are you, when we talk about resiliency, what are we trying to solve? And so let me get a little bigger for you, or give you a different analogy that came to mind the minute you sent that over. Uh, let's say a person gets sick. They put on weight. They end up having diabetes. They end up not looking as good. They don't feel as healthy about themselves. They might lose their job. They're out of work a lot more. They have health issues. Their premiums might go up. They have issues in their home because of it. Now, how do you solve that challenge? What would you do if someone found that had all of these challenges? What would you do?
All these challenges have a root cause, which
Well, go ahead.
right, which
Well,
starts with.
let me hear your answer. Sorry, I interrupted.
That's okay. It starts at the what I call root cause. It
Okay.
starts with the decisions of poor health maintenance.
Okay. So you might be able to argue this that if, and I'm going to pick on America because I'm American, I can do that. In other countries, I won't do it as harshly. We have over 1,300 chemicals in our food that we have that interact with our bodies that don't keep us healthy. We have a school system that promotes sitting in a chair instead of building and creating. So there's a sex orientation. Men, boys want to run, and girls are better at sitting. I'm not using that ubiquitously, so I don't need to be attacked by it. But it doesn't fit a modality.
Right.
We have an economic system. We have a governance model. All of them are different. So if we take this individual and we, for example, give it Ozempic, oh my God, you've got Ozempic. Well, they're going to lose the weight. But we didn't think about all those other things. I mean, a human is not just one piece. So we have in there, we have exercise, diet, health,
Health. Yep.
purpose, relationships, sleep, income, community, their intent, their architecture. It's a holistic, interconnected set of conditions. We could argue, if we looked at the world today, the world is sick.
Hmm.
We have what we label in Project Moonlight or Mirth is 6 mega challenges. Uh, Climate change, mass extinction, ecosystems collapses, displacement, unrest, and explosive impact from things that humans do over the top. The 17 SDGs, I won't get into them, they'll never work. They're all supposed to be solved by 2030. So we call them challenges because you can't solve climate change. You can't solve it. What climate do you want? You want to go back a billion years ago, 300,000 years ago? Where you're sitting today could have been an ice age at some point. So we can't fix it, but we can address, adapt, and evolve to it. And the challenge with resiliency, whenever we look at that terminology, individuals say, well, we need to fix that. Okay, great. Go ahead, fix that. But it's an interconnected.
You made a comment. You made a comment that, and I love America. I'm going to do the same thing. Pick out. we're so used to just take this little tiny pill, right? You mentioned it, and that'll take care of your problems, But go ahead, and we got to get out of that.
We're a very complex organism, and we have a lot of needs to be able, through our lives, to be able to adapt, address, and evolve to our lives. And when we look at spending all this money on resiliency, what we tend to say is, we need to address water. But water is not a singular answer. Like, what does that mean? We have to have water. So, or we're deforesting everything. So let's plant trees. I don't know if you read recently, China just came out with, I'm not picking on them, I lived in Hong Kong. I have many friends who are Chinese. But they planted like 66 to 70 billion trees. I don't know if you read about that.
I did. All of the same kind, which is an ecological disaster. Yeah.
So they ended up with hydrological system errors, evaporation transmission errors. The water in Tibet Plateau changed. The water downstream changed to 74% of the country. Lower vegetation, poorly designed monoculture of diversity within the landscape. So they planted trees and they solved it. So I think what humans have become, or we become so specialized that we don't see the interconnectedness of everything, that we say, why don't we do that? And that will solve itself. It doesn't work that way.
No.
It never has. So using the architecture has to go from components, pieces, which you brought up. You brought up transformers. You brought up, I think, and you wrote about substations, inverters, water plants, communications networks, cybersecurity tools. You've got dams, ports, roads. You pull that all together. And then you go to systems and interdependencies and redundancies and adaptability and recovery. But we're really talking about societal shifts. And so we have the economy, the communities, the culture, the institutions, the political stability, the education, the health of the people. We have to go from solving pieces to looking at systems. And I can give you an example if you want to know of a change that might be valuable. So sounds like a yes. Sorry. In the United States, a strong lobby is the road industry lobby. Now, why do you think what's so right and potentially wrong about having a very strong road lobby? What do you think, Maria?
Road,
ROAD, road lobby.
A road lobby for roads.
For roads. They're big on roads. $100 million or something. I'm making that number up, but let's say why? They're huge.
I'm going to just say this, probably because Americans love to drive their cars. That is true.
That's a result of it. But what's the challenge with it, or what's the good thing about having a road lobby group?
Well, it's advocating for better transportation from point A to point B, not just for ourselves individually if we want to go somewhere, but also for the movement. Most of our products here in the United States actually get moved by trucks, semi-trailers, this and that. So having a well maintained road system is conducive to having our just-in-time economy run great. Which is another thing that should be fixed.
Okay, so What it does, though, is it pushes out other options. It pushes out rail, pushes out maritime, air, pipeline, all different other types of services. Because of it, we get a road when we might not need a road. Because the people sitting at the table are putting in roads. They economically benefit from it. Hey, that's part of the American way of economics. The automobile manufacturers benefit from it. The quarries benefit. There's a lot of people who benefit from the road. But if you were really to sit down and say, how should we architect this? You probably should have an intermodal group. Their responsibility is to figure out the best way. So I'll give you two examples very quickly. In Vancouver, they have an intermodal authority. There's actually a name for it. I don't remember it off the top of my head. I could look it up, but there's an intermodal authority. And their job is to say, what's the best way to move people, goods, services?
Right.
Then you don't get the same traffic. Then you don't have the same congestion that you would be looking for, that you would typically run into. So by reassessing the orientation of the group, you now have different questions on the table. And the questions today are, right, how do we solve that? How do we solve this? So I'll give you a very, I love this. This is one of my best examples of Hong Kong. Lived there for 10 years. I show up in Hong Kong and I have a meeting in the morning. So I wake up in the morning and they say, you got to take what's called the MTR. It's their transportation authority. And it's a train. So I run in and it's a card. It's clean as can be. They've got glass up to protect people from falling over. I run down and I say, what time do I have to get to this to get on the train? So I run down and I get to the platform and whoosh,
it goes by.
I missed it. In New York, what's that, a half hour, 40 minutes, 20 minutes, depending on where you're going?
It depends on the train.
Yeah, it's just sometimes it's ridiculous what you have. And as I'm looking, I hear whoosh. The next one comes in. In the morning, they run those trains like a minute and a half apart.
Oh, wow.
Because they're moving people to their jobs. So they figure out where people are and where they need to be. And during the day in Hong Kong, you don't have to wait more than maybe 3 minutes at any train stop. You never need a path. You never need a map. You never need a schedule. If you walk on that platform 4 minutes later, wham, there's a train. Right. And they're clean and they're neat. Now, at night, they do move it to sometimes like 5, 7, 8 minutes. So it's terrible. But think about it. Someone said, and in the morning and the night, the trains run differently. They have more trains to get people home and they have more the other way. And the challenge is because we look at everything because of maybe economics, because we're not taught to think interdisciplinarily in school, we're not taught to take our disciplines and move them across. There's a reason for it. It takes 30% more to teach a class that's interdisciplinary than it does a normal class. So why does the teacher want to work harder and have to coordinate with other teachers to be able to get something done? It's better to just teach your class in your discipline. So I think we have some structural challenges. We have our educational challenges. We have our orientation challenges. We have our economic challenges. Sometimes you need people in government who can actually, and I'm not saying people are bad, but you need people there who can think in a multimodal manner or an interconnected discipline. Does that make sense?
Yeah. You mentioned having a mobile lobby as opposed to a road lobby, a train lobby, whatever else. It's and making decisions at a higher level than thinking macro instead of micro, right? If we're going to throw economics into this whole thing.
So we got components, we've got systems, and now we got society. These are societal questions. So I actually work with the Transportation Authority and Sarasota, I think, is the other one that's trying this. I threw out an idea that people went, "What are you talking about?" I said to the audience, when I speak, I do something very different. I have something called consulting from the stage. I actually do between 10 to 40 hours of homework for any presentation I give. I even got my Harley motorcycle license to speak to Harley. I felt you couldn't speak at Harley if you didn't have that. I might go to a truck stop. I might go visit someplace. And what I was challenged with the transportation authority or transportation organizations is even the approach that they're using to help society. And I said, one of the things they do is they run trains to underprivileged and buses to underprivileged areas.
Mm-hmm.
I said, no, that's the worst thing you should do. See, if you have a wealthy community and there are kids in that community, you should have a lane going right out to that place to bring them to the mall, to bring them to the station, to bring them places, because that mom or dad who's got influence, got company, got economics, if their kids are riding that train to get to where they need to be, to the doctor's office, to visit their girlfriend or boyfriend, to travel to go see a movie, to go to a concert, if they're using it, they're going to be very engaged in delivering it. And you saw the audience looking like, they don't think that way. We just have to give the underprivileged. But that's where you look at a societal shift instead of an individual shift. And that's part of the resiliency challenge.
Yeah.
What are you thinking? Because I know that's not where you thought I was going to be going.
No. I agree. I mean, really, it's all about, and remember the first title I had? I kind of was shooting for perspectives, from a perspective, are we really looking at this in such a manner that we can actually solve? I'm all about problem solving, it sort of agitates me when I sit in a room and everyone just keeps kind of going around in circles and nothing gets solved. Usually what I do is I say, when you guys have another meeting and you actually plan on solving something, invite me. But until then, please uninvite me. I really don't want to be here. But so I'm trying to see how this needle can be moved in a positive direction where we can actually have measurable results. I'm all about metrics, and maybe that's not a good thing or a good way of looking at it. I don't know, but I've been in this now for 6 years, and it's just the same thing.
It's the same thing. So I'm going to relate it to Project Moonhut, or Mirth. Mirth means moon and earth combined. It's our new future of our geography. Very quickly, if you were born in 1950 and someone said, "Where do you live?" I don't know if I did this with you on the last call, but if someone asked you, "Where did you live in 1850?" what might you answer?
Where did I live and where?
If someone asked you in 1850 and you lived at that time, someone asked where you live, what might your answer be in 1850?
Well, it would probably be a whole lot different than now. I mean, it really would. I mean, in 1850, it was just horses.
So the average person would say, I live in this village, I live in this valley, I live near the river.
I live near the brook, right at the intersection of the big oak tree and
where the stone is.
Right,
where the big tree is. You take a little right at the tree.
Yeah.
Our orientation was very closed off. We said we lived there. And if you travel forward in time to 1930, how might you have answered that question?
In 1930s? Now we have the automobile. Granted, it doesn't go the distances we have now. So you could actually now, and the Postal Service had been no more Pony Express, so people had addresses now. So you would actually give an address. You could give an address, and chances are people could find it. But you still had to give directions. County Road Z, make a left at the old red barn. And I use this because I used to live in a rural part of upstate California. And that's how some people did give directions to their house. This is not that long ago. But when you're out in the...
I would argue that someone in 1930 might say, I live in Europe. or I live in North America because of the war, the World War.
Oh, yeah.
They now had an orientation to a world that was bigger. Even if they never went there, they might say, well, I'm a European. Even though they were before, the scope has changed. If we traveled to 1970, how might someone have answered that question?
That's pre-GPS to the general public. Yeah, you would actually give that. Those are the days of the maps. So you'd actually give instructions, you know.
You might say, people might still say my town, my village, my country, or our territory. But you might say I live on Earth because in 1968, we saw Earth rise. We saw the picture from afar. And in 1969, we landed on the moon. So someone might say, I live on planet Earth. An
Well,
orientation, because that was the first time we saw the Earth from afar. It was a big deal. Everybody saw planet Earth. And orientation changes. As orientation changes and words change, so does society change. So we actually live between the moon and the Earth. I'm not a space person. I do know a lot about it. I've learned, but I'm not a space person. And without even realizing it, the angle of rotation of the Earth is the moon keeps us in that. It keeps us at a rotational speed. The tides happen. That's how we came out of the oceans. Women's biological cycles, animals' biological cycles. We hunted by the light of the moon. We've told stories about the moon. Our lives have a lot of moon in it, which we don't realize. That actually keeps us. Without the moon, we wouldn't be here. So we have mirth. And the reason I brought it up is I get a lot of people in this ecosystem. And space is not an industry, it's a geography. Let's get that straight. There is no space industry. You could be in life support, underwater, on land, high altitude, on the moon, or in the International Space Station or Mars. It's still life support. People would say to me all the time, David, I've been doing this for 25 years. What do you think you know? And I'd be, then just point to where we are on the moon. It's not complicated. You're telling your 25 years. If you've been working 25 years of your life to solve being on the moon, just show me where you are on the moon. I'd love to see it. Well, David, space is hard. No, Earth is hard. We have a deep gravity well. We have economics. We have people. We have politics. We have all sorts of challenges on Earth. The gravity is a big one. Space is hard. It's not hard. It's harsh, and we have to deal with it. When we get up there, we're actually pretty good at it. These individuals believe, who are solving resiliency, getting to my point, are solving resiliency, have the wrong map. They have the wrong map. And they believe that those pieces that they've been solving for 25 years, they haven't evolved to the next iteration of what that might be. And that's why we're sitting. You asked the question, why are we still here? Why haven't we made that transition? Because not enough individuals have learned to be able to look at the interdisciplinary components of it. So let's take a jump to resiliency. And I'm going to use the United States just because the podcast is the United States, and the way you approach it is, let's say the United States solved everything. They had resiliency. They can manage it. And the rest of the world falls apart. How are we going to do?
not very good. I can tell you that, because
Not,
we're,
yeah.
you know, the world is symbiotic. We all rely on each other, even though we think we're an island in the sun. No, we're not.
We're not. And right now, there are parts of the ocean that are completely dead.
Yeah.
Meaning, there's a guy who, I can't remember his name off the top of my head. He took a boat out onto the ocean. He dropped a bucket, instead of a meter down 3 feet, he dropped it 9 feet, which has never been done, about 72 different locations. And while I was speaking to him, he said parts of the ocean do not have a single living creature in them. They're completely dead from the poisons and the components we put into it, the garbage that we put into it. And there's industrial waste, solid waste, medical waste, mining waste. There's industrial waste, agricultural waste. The United States dumps 10 billion gallons of municipal waste into the ocean a day. Not the other waste, just 10 billion. Europe does more, 530 million people. Asia, China does more, and so does India. I'm not going to put in numbers, but let's say I'm giving 10, 10, 10. 40 billion gallons of sewage, just municipal waste, is tremendous. So we're killing our oceans. My point is, we're connected to them. So if we're going to solve resiliency, the best thing to do is help solve resiliency for others too. Let
Yep.
them solve where they are. Let them have the food where they are. Let them have the protection that they need. Because if they're safe where they are, they'll stay and they'll
Exactly.
build their own lives. Does that make
Yeah.
sense the way I kind of
Oh
walk
yeah.
you through
I,
in
I,
space and everything else?
I've always said that if you have a stable country, why would you ever leave it? That goes, to my parents. They immigrated here legally from Colombia, and I guarantee if the if the guerrilla organization wasn't, it was very active in those days in the 70s, and they were brutal, and people weren't say they were being kidnapped, this and that, and my mom and dad said, if we can get a better, more stable life somewhere else, well, work on getting other countries stabilized. People will stay. You know, Colombia had a
There's
big brain drain because of of all its issues. And then it moved into the drug trade, and that even made things worse, right? But anyway,
so when someone argues that helping other people is a bad thing, and we have to focus on ourselves, I think there's a balance that has to happen. We have to help individuals where they are so they stay where they are,
mm,
not because we don't want them. It's they've got their own culture, they've got their own society, the way of living, the way they manage their world. And so when you say, and someone had sent since an email, and you said this person asked, why have we spent $111 trillion since 9/11 for resiliency, for protection, and we still haven't solved it? Because we're solving the wrong challenges
exactly.
continuously. And so the question becomes a larger question, which I didn't plan on going here. Uh,
Go there, because
no, well, it's let's start with two things. One thing first, then I'll go to the second one. And I'm not promoting Paid to Think. It's on its 15th printing. It took 12 years to write 14 complete revisions. It's over 400 examples in there
yeah,
from over 50 countries. And there were 72% of them are mine. I don't write it in the book, but I talk about the interconnectedness of the way in which people should live, work, and play. And I think we have to change our educational systems in order to solve these challenges. I think that our incentive programs need to be revisited. I think governments around the world have to restate where they sit. And I'll give you an example of how we a story you wouldn't have heard of how we divert individuals. I was at an event with someone who was second in command at a major country in Europe. And during their presentation, I heard she was speaking, and she, near the end, said, and all of us have to get on board and solve the 17 SDGs. And she got off. And I walked up to her and I said, you do know we will not solve one of this United Nations 17 SDGs. And I think I did send her the paper. I have a paper on this. There's actually 26 or 27 SDGs. You
hmm
can't have clean water and sanitation. That's two. You can't have infrastructure. There's some of them that have three, and they're not solvable. And
right.
she looked at me and she said, but David, everybody needs hope. I said, hope without a plan is debilitating.
Right.
And what you did is you debilitated the people in the audience, because what will happen is they trust in you. And you're going to tell them to go put their energy into it, and they'll work on it and find out we're not cleaning our clean water. And infrastructure, what does that mean? And sustainability for the goals, what does that mean? So how do you make that? How do you leverage that? And there's a concerted effort has to be put, or to find two things. One, you have to find the individuals who think interconnectedly. Not an easy thing. People think they do. You and I just heard a presentation the other day. It wasn't interconnected in my case. The major lakes in the world are all drying up.
Yep.
The major lakes in the world are all drying up. The one in Bolivia is dried up, that you had brought up. The one in Kazakhstan has completely dried up. We put dams all over because there's an economic value, and they've damaged water flow and capability. So we don't really think in the interconnected way. So we have to find those individuals. Now, we're kind of working on that, and I'm not here to promote anything, but we're kind of working on it, and I didn't plan on going here. Look around your desk and tell me one thing that wasn't touched by something that was developed for beyond Earth, for either rocketry or the moon or satellites or something. Can you look around where you are and tell me one thing that doesn't have something in its process that wasn't connected to people who had solved for beyond Earth?
I can't. I used to work at NASA, so, and I
Okay.
don't know if you knew that. I worked at
I
Ames. I worked at Ames Research Center. Yeah, right there in Mountain View.
okay. So that's where I
So
started.
I saw the VR virtual reality goggles back in 1988.
Yeah.
They had them that, and they were darn good back then. They're
Yeah.
I mean
So
of
scratch
course they
resistant lenses, cordless headsets. The
headsets.
first
Oh, yeah,
power tool was in 1968, where 1961 Black and Decker and Martin Marietta were asked, can they solve for a cordless power tool because they needed it beyond Earth, and they
yep,
solved it. They created
yep.
the first power tool. Every single power tool that is on this Earth today
Oh yeah,
came off from someone who solved that challenge. Every single so anything that had a truck that was solved by it, or MRIs, CAT scans, water filtration, air purification. I mean, our running shoes. Every running shoe has a basis in there. Our laptops don't dissipate heat. Dissipate heat because of something that was created to go beyond Earth.
yeah.
And so the challenge. I had this question with my wife yesterday, the day before. She asked me a question, and I said, "Why is Mirth, Moon and Earth? Why is it so valuable?" And she couldn't come up with an answer, even though she's been with me for 400 billion years. Why do you think Project Moonhut is valuable? If I'm not a space person, you are more of a space person than I am, even though they turn on this flight simulator for me. Uh,
That's
why,
what I used
why
to
do
work
you,
on was the craze, the supercomputers. Yeah, yeah,
okay.
yeah.
Well, I walk into the booth where they have the flight simulator, and Bruce is with me, and the guy sticks his head in, and he says, "Can we turn on the flight simulator for you? Do you want us to?" And I went, "Yeah." And the guy goes out, and I say, "Bruce, do they turn this on for everybody?" He said, "They don't turn it on for anybody." He says, "It takes 5 people to turn it on." I said, "Why do they turn it on for me?" He says, "I don't know." But they allowed me to play with the joystick and go up and down, and it was kind of cool.
Yeah, yeah.
The why is solving for beyond Earth so valuable? That's my question. To solve resiliency. That's my
Because
question.
it builds innovation. It really does. It gets us to think out of the box. And I'm just using this from my experience working at Ames Research Center.
Mm-hmm.
It you know that whole research community actually suffered greatly in the mid 1990s when the funding got cut by a certain administration that came in 1994 and closed down a lot of military bases and actually cut NASA's budget by a whole lot. You know, people on the Mars projects were saying, yeah, we're using duct tape and thread now, because they couldn't, it was cut back so greatly. And as a result, for a little while there, actually, NASA kind of was not innovative. And just for a little while, I'm not saying, it still had the power, it still had, a lot of, but it had a little bit of a brain drain because a lot of us left. A lot of us left to a lot of these startup companies like Cisco Systems and things like, things were happening in Silicon Valley at the time. So, it, I believe the research arm of the government drives the innovations that we see and enjoy today,
I'm going to
or
give you just
drove
a
and
little
still
bit.
drive to a certain extent, but not as much anymore.
I'm going to give you a much simpler way to think about it.
Hmm.
And this is why what we're working on. Let me give you one concept, then I'll tell you then another one. there's an expression, we turn the innovations back on Earth to improve life on Earth. Everybody says that all the time. No innovation has, we've almost had no innovations in space. They're developed on Earth, they go up, and then they're used. And if they're valuable, they come back and they're used here. Some of them are only single use out in space. Some of them can go back out to space and be used on Earth. Some of them never make it to space. They're just great innovations and they're used someplace else in the universe. But there's a fundamental reason why it's so valuable. And there's enough people in the world today who love space. Mm-hmm. When you solve a challenge on Earth, you solve it with a whole set of conditions without even realizing it. You know there's gravity. So without even thinking it, you solve for 1G. Solving for 1G just changes everything. Far distances, radiation, extreme cold, extreme heat, plus 130, 132, minus 123, something like that. Extreme cold, extreme heat. Recycling systems are necessary. So when you solve for beyond Earth, you ask a whole nother set of questions. And because you ask new questions, you have a chance of creating new answers. So the value of solving for beyond Earth is not for beyond Earth. Because let's say there is a project out there, and I'm going to say Elon puts it out there, or NASA, or European Space Agency, or Roscosmos, or the Chinese agency, doesn't make a difference. The people sitting down are saying, I don't know how that will work. And when you have to learn something new, you change your answers. So if I'm solving for water filtration on Earth, I'm already thinking about filters and manufacturing and capabilities and transport and pricing. When I go out there, I can't. I have to rethink everything.
Right.
So there's a huge value to the Beyond Earth ecosystem. And here's where it becomes even more. So I'm going to give you, so those that go to Beyond Earth stay there. They're used only there. They can't be used here. Those that are used there and here. But then there's a whole nother set. Let's say there's 25 companies going for a bid for a project, any project. Mm-hmm. Only one wins. What do the other 24 do? So I've been working on this for 2 years. I just quit. I'm not going to use it anywhere else. No, they say, I've got $1.5 million invested in this. I've got 7 million. How do we repurpose it? How do we reuse it? You have those individuals who worked at those places, not only created the product, but sometimes you have to create new manufacturing technologies to be able to make the product. So those start to be disseminated at conferences and events. You have people writing papers on it. You have people go to university. You have people leave jobs at one place and take that knowledge to another. So let's say I'm building a water filtration system and it didn't work. However, I learned a variety of things, and now I'm working in a company that does manufacturing of cars. I will bring another set with me. That's the value. It's not the value of space. It's the value of all the things that come along with it. So here's the piece that might be useful. Hopefully these are all useful, but might be useful. There's an expression, think outside the box. Can you tell me how to do that?
Say that again.
Can you tell me how to think outside the box?
How to think outside the box. It's interesting because I've been asked to do that a lot.
No.
I actually, having worked at NASA and some of the other places I've worked at, a lot of times we do things, or we were writing code that really, this was before routers and switches. We're talking the late 80s. So we were doing things that have never been done before. And actually, I worked on a project for the U.S. Army. It was a communications ground to satellite, right? This was 1987, okay? So I actually wrote the cycle redundancy checker. That had never been really done for the transmission of the data, of the telemetry data up to the satellite, okay? And so my personal approach to this is I never looked at it from a negative standpoint. In other words, oh my God, this has never been done before. How am I going to do this? I would say, and this is just my mindset intellectually, I would say, I know I'm working from a position that this has been done before. This is a problem where other people have looked at it and have applied it in different disciplines. Now I'm applying it in this methodology in this discipline, and I've always looked at looking at methods of problem solving and taking them into the problem I'm trying to solve. Does that make sense? Because
I'll simplify it for you because you are an incredible thinker. We've had a few conversations. You like to go dynamically in different directions. You cannot think outside the box. It's physically impossible because the box contains all the knowledge you have.
right.
So I taught new product and service development and executive strategy at NYU for 12 years. And in one of the classes, I had this one individual talk about, they were in the greeting cards business. Mm-hmm. And they had a bunch of artists, and every year, be a month or two before they have to come up with a new set of cards, the leadership would say, go out, just look at all the cards out there and come back with some new ideas. And there's two challenges, or one challenge with that. They're going and looking at last year's designs. Those were all last year's. That's how they're in the stores. So he's having them go look at last year's work. But the positive thing is he's expanding their box. See, most innovative thinkers never think outside the box. They think inside the box. Right. What they do is they accumulate knowledge and ideas and concepts and tools. And when something comes up, they say, wow, I've got something for that.
I've got something, yeah.
I draw, paint, and sculpt. I do carpentry, plumbing, electrical work. And in my basement, I got tools galore. So if, in fact, I run across a plumbing thing or challenge, I've got tons of plumbing tools. You want me on the roof? I got full gear to do roofing and nail guns. If you wanted me to get in a tree, I was just in the tree about 30 feet up the other day. I've got the tools to cut down. I got 2 chainsaws. But that's in my box because I know how to turn it on, the handle it, the gloves, the cables, the whatever, all those things. The challenge is we don't get people to be diverse enough to be able to understand enough of the disciplines. So I feel privileged. Having worked in Bangladesh on a tent manufacturing line with over 1 million square feet, and then the next week I'm in BMW plant, and the next one I'm working with Harley Davidson, and then the next I'm working with Ferrari, because it gives, in New Zealand, it gives you the box of possibilities.
What you've defined are separate boxes. I mean, you have a box of tools for chopping down the tree. You have a box of tools for, the plumbing, right? You have your plumbing tools all together, so they're different. And I think that's kind of what I was trying to say, is that there are other boxes. Now, I might not own some, but boy, I do know that David Smith, and I know he has a box.
Right. Well,
so I'm going to talk to you about that, right? And so that's what I would do.
Inside the box. Mm-hmm. Right. That's thinking inside the box. There's a guy in Hong Kong. His name was Edge. He's probably still is named Edge. And I sat down with him. He runs their innovation for all KPMG. And I told him about, you can't think outside the box. You can only think inside. And he said, that's exactly what I do. There was a positive spin. I'm in Silicon Valley with a good friend who just passed away, Mort Grosser. You might know him from the Valley. Mort Grosser was an icon. I think he had 4 Learjets. He also started Carbon 3D. He helped with Carbon 3D's orientation.
Company.
And I was in one of the Valley restaurants with him and his girlfriend. He was 93. His girlfriend of 82 or something. He picked up a young whippersnapper. I threw it on the table, on the white tabletop, and he said, I don't think that way. So then he gets up and his girlfriend says, no, see, that's not right. And he goes to the bathroom, but he knows everybody in the restaurant. So it takes him 20 minutes. He comes back, he says, that's exactly what I do. He writes poetry. He also is mechanically inclined. He makes small items. He spoke at Stanford all the time. He was in multiple industries. So the challenge is we have too many singular disciplinary educational programs, or even in our organizations, we don't get enough people to get diverse perspectives. So if in fact more innovations, or a huge amount of innovations, come from knowing about Beyond Earth, why don't more people know about it? It's like, why aren't people asking the questions? Because the minute you ask the question, if we solve for on the moon, our 4 phases. If we solve for that, we solve for Earth. The equation changes.
True.
So resiliency, I don't believe, is going to come from the people who are standing around saying, we need to harden this line. We need to put the water this way. We
Yeah.
need to change the way this is. We're building systems on top of systems on top of systems. And a lot of these people then say, yeah, I'm going to retire in 8 years. I'm going to retire in 6 years. I don't care. And you don't end up with progress. And I think that's what you're asking about.
Yeah, that is. Yeah, I guess I've gotten to a point where I've gone to Congress, presented, and you probably have as well. And it is a little, and you pointed this out. Yeah, I have a certain level of frustration at this point in time because it doesn't seem like we're making any headway. And then we see organizations pivot, but I'm not sure that they're pivoting in the right direction either. And I kind of want you to address that because you've been in this longer than I have, especially in this resiliency arena with
actually
with
I actually was, I don't know how I was invited to FIR, Foundation for Resiliency. I was invited by Mary, I think it was, and then I met Steve. I'm very new to this whole resiliency thing, and I feel like the black sheep of the group, because if you notice, every time I give an answer about building and creating and making change on a worldwide level, always worldwide. And I don't hear those examples. I hear protectionism. And they're a great group. I love being on it because I do learn. It scares me half to death. And you've heard me say many times, this is my scary call of the week.
Yeah.
Because I say, oh no, I didn't realize that's another issue.
It is.
Yeah.
It is.
It's a scary call.
Yeah, it is.
But I learn a lot from it. And Steve has been absolutely phenomenal. He's been on our team. He's helped us out with, we have some papers on energy, on how to transform energy. And so great group. And I have been showing up for a time. So I haven't been involved in resiliency. What happened was, to my wife's chagrin, I was at an event. I was speaking in Silicon Valley. When I was done, a guy next to me says, "You want to tour NASA? Give me a call." I said, "Well, I'm traveling 250 to 300,000 miles a year. I'm in Silicon Valley every month. Live in Hong Kong. Live in New York. I have a combination." Yeah. And he said, "Come and visit." So I went to the Valley, and I went to Ames. It was Ames at the Portal. You know the Portal. Yeah. I went to the Portal with Dan Rasky and Lynn Harper and Bruce Pittman and that whole crew. And Dan's on, Bruce is on the call, and he's on the phone. He says, "Take a seat." So I take a seat. And Lynn Rasky walks over, and we start talking. She's one of the people, this is controversial, she said she's one of the people who started astrobiology. Other people say, no, I'm not the person to know that. And I didn't do any research on it. And we had a great conversation. She looked at me. She said, "How do you know these things?" She thought I was a business person. I said, "Background is organic chemistry, physics, and calculus." "Oh, so you're like us." So we ended up sitting for 3 hours. They told me all the challenges with NASA, all the things were going on. I then did another call. I did a second. I didn't get a tour. So the second time I went back, same thing. I sat down 3 hours later, didn't get a tour. Third time, I got the tour. I got the flight simulator. But we were at Scratch Restaurant. You probably know the name. We were at Scratch. And Bruce was telling me that NASA was working on what happens if a woman gets pregnant on the moon. And I looked at him, and I said, "I can solve that for you." Like, how are you going to solve space, David? You don't even know what the moon is made of. You don't know about the distances. You don't know the temperatures. I knew nothing. Right. And can I swear on the call just for one moment? So I signaled for him to come closer, and I said, "I can solve that." And he looks at me. I said, "Send her the fuck home." And he looked at me stunned. And I said, "We don't need to be solving for a woman at 1/6 gravity. The cells might not divide well. We don't need to be solving for that today. We still have to get to the moon." And I looked at him and I said, "Would you like to know how to get to the moon?" And shocked, I said, "You know what I do. I mean, Maersk was working on something for 2 years. I solved it in 3 hours." I've done that multiple times, all different categories. And he said, sure. And for an hour and a half, I outlined a 4-phase development of the moon, which we're still following today. That's the first thing I ever drew of it. We're still following it today. And what I realized was I was not a space person, a person who loves looking up. But I realized that our world would benefit. Mars will not do it. There's actually not a lot of reasons for Mars helping Earth. It's good as a joyride. A lot of people will die along the way. The number one life support company in the world has said that they, out of 100 people on the rocket that Elon's working on, I didn't do the data. This is what they shared with me in private, is they said probably 6 or 7 people will live because of the radiation and the 8 months. But the moon is 3 days away. So I said, because I was looking at the world, this wonderful, wonderful world, and I've worked in all over places and met amazing people in every country. I've been to Moscow, had an amazing time, danced all night, been to Shanghai, danced all night, been to Cartagena, Colombia, where you're from. I had an amazing experience there. Mexico City, rocked it in there. I said, how do we redefine how do we live on this earth? And I realized we have to do 2 things. We have to innovate differently. Yes. We're not innovating. We're at a point where people only want, there's a few things that people want. I'm not going to be so generous. People want to be influencers because that's how you build your business and your income and everything. Mm-hmm. And they want to be billionaires. Now, I don't know where we went from wanting to have 1 million to 5 million to 10 million to 1 billion. Something's lost in translation there. I don't get it. I think you can have a good life with a few $1 million, but that's not for me to say. For my own heart, I said, that's what I do in my own thinking, is I was solving for a challenge of X. How do we get people to rethink the future? So if we solved for the moon, we are solving for resiliency. Water filtration, air filtration, materials that are more responsive. We're not going to stop climate change, by the way, not going to stop it. Climate's always been changing. It's going to continue. Exactly. We might have added to it. We're not going to stop ecosystems collapsing. They've been since the beginning of time. 99.6% of all species on this planet have gone extinct. We're not going to stop mass extinction. They're happening. We have more conflicts on planet Earth than we've had it since the beginning of time. At any one time, we've had the 2 world wars, but otherwise, no. How do you solve it? So you're asking the question, how do you solve it? And unfortunately, I didn't want to go here, and I honestly did not want to go here, is we have to get people to rethink the types of innovations they're working on where there is an economic value. Solve something, you have a new material that could handle radiation, handle high heat, handle whatever. Right. We have to learn new governance models. We have over 240 governance models. Can you name more? How many governance models can you name today? Thinking inside the box, how many can you name?
To be honest, I can't name any because
democracy.
Okay, yeah.
Communism, socialism. Name some others.
Those, okay. I thought you were talking governance, like in computer security.
No.
My mind automatically goes in there, and I'm like, well, there's aside from NIST.
I've only had 2 people be able to say more than 7, and we have 240 now. Why 240?
Yeah,
because it gives us options in leading. Maybe I run my front office one way because that's one way to govern the people. And maybe I do my sales staff another way. And maybe I do my people in production another way. Maybe I work with my customers another way. It's tools. And what we need to do is give the world and those who are interested in creating change, and I'm going to say resilience is one of them. Mm-hmm. We need them to be thinking differently, not because they're interested in space, not because they're interested in the moon. Because the challenges that you want to solve about resiliency, the challenges you want to solve about water, challenges you want to solve are not going to come with there's an old saying, and I also screwed up. They don't come from the things that you already know. They come from how you expand what they know. And there's one thing amazing about builders. A builder in Japan who's working on something who meets a builder in Argentina who's working on something, who builds an meets someone from Russia and
Hmm.
someone from the United States. They don't care about politics. How do we work together to solve this? And
Exactly.
builders unite. And what we want to do is get them to unite on something, and those innovations will reshape how we live on this planet. Does that make sense? I know I gave you a lot there.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I know. I mean, we met almost 2 years ago in New York City. It was a group of about 30 of us. We were brought together by a very prestigious gentleman, and I'm going to keep names out of it, but he brought us all in to address grid resiliency or resilient critical infrastructure. Food, water, and electrical were his focuses. So he brought, you know, uh, people in from multidiscipline government. It was actually a 3 day event, and we just sat there, and it was like a think tank for.
Mhm.
But once we dispersed, and all of us worked together. Many of that's where I met, Mary Lasky and Steve
Yeah.
Valland. And while we're still working there, it together, if I look, I'm coming back on this 2 year anniversary here in September that we did this. That's a good metric. Where how can we measure where have we gotten any traction anywhere? What have we done? I think we have in certain small bits and pieces, like the community resiliency, uh,
Mhm.
the individual resiliency, because there's been a shift in focus. But overall, I mean, if I were to walk out my door and ask a handful of my neighbors, they're still oblivious to it all, even though I try to talk to them about it. And it's a whole different paradigm, a way. Uh, you mentioned the educational system. I think that, yes, without going
Well,
down that rabbit hole, but that's a huge part of our problem right now.
so you had an event, and the people brought the people together,
Hmm.
and they might have had a good time. But in order for innovations to spread, something else has to happen. And that is, you have to think holistically. Who you bring on, why, where, when, and how they're indoctrinated. I'm using a specific word. How do they understand the concepts of how you're going to work together? How all those ideas are formulated and brewed and brought together? And is there a commitment to a larger path afterwards? Uh, I often, so if that's not whole done, that whole thing, that's what you're paid to think about in leadership. How does that whole thing transpire? Getting the event is not difficult. People are going to be innovative, toss things out the wall, off the wall. That's great. But how do you make that next iteration happen? That's what's missing in your case. They had great ideas. I bet they weren't captured extremely well. They weren't disseminated well. And there wasn't probably, I'm not picking on the person who runs it, it probably wasn't injected into the next system. So let me give you an example. We're on our website. It's probably up right now. I'm hoping Marcus did it. He's out of Germany. He's an absolutely amazing guy. He does our website. He's been working on it with some others, but he does the main designer. We're for a bunch of reasons I have not done this, but we're starting the Mirth Society. And the Mirth Society is where people can join Project Moonhot. They could join Mirth, and they could become a part of a group that wants to move things forward. So if you go to the website, you'll see I think it's under join or participate. I'd have to look the last tab. And what we want to do is bring individuals together with the intentionality of driving them into one of the areas or an area that they can have influence. So we have people working on all sorts of things. We have the most advanced and most advanced semi-autonomous and autonomous robotic mining equipment in the world. We have we're working on an artificial intelligence platform. They're taking Paid to Think, the book. They're putting it together into the content and then creating an engine that brings together alliance development, community engagement, governance, coordination. We have another group out of Dubai, and we're working on agriculture in environments where we go up about 2 to 3 degrees C, which is about 5 degrees, because you're going to see Spain is going to be desertified. They're already having challenges in Italy. Greece, that whole region, is going to be challenged on growing crops all the way through India, all the way through Bangladesh and Sri Lanka and that whole region to the South China Sea, and across the southern United States. It's going to be a challenge. So we're working on things from even how to address food challenges. We produce 1.5 times the amount of food we need to feed the earth over every year. 1.5 times. We could feed the earth 1.5 times. Why don't we? We just filed some paperwork. We've got work that we're working on to solve that challenge. So we're really addressing large scale challenges. And the thing is, the point is, we've been working on the intake engine. How does that work? You could sign up. How does that work? What is the CRM behind it? What's the email system behind it? Then the person comes on and now they're brought in. Then they're going to get an email that says you could become a part of this. Then they're going to get where they could be. But that whole system is normally forgotten. A conference is done when it's done. No, a conference is an initiate. It's part of a sequence. If you don't have things after it, you just lose. And that's what normally happens. Does that make sense? I can't hear you.
Sorry about that. I must hit the mute button accidentally. I was putting links to everything as you're talking. I'm putting links to your books and everything in the chat. So I guess I want to hear people typing away. But yeah, that makes sense.
By the way, your noise canceling microphone probably wouldn't hear it. So right now, most people have a noise canceling platform. Right now, I've got this room boils. It's for some reason we haven't figured out why. I've got an AC running like 6-8 feet from me, and it is loud. I can't hear anything you're doing, just so you know.
Oh, okay.
It's noise canceling. It's going to take out tick, 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 tick. It's just going to do that. So when just in case you didn't hear it all, it's a systems approach.
It is.
And the challenge is humans are, I can't say this in a way that doesn't sound like I'm pontificating about myself, but it was something about how people have reacted. Most individuals take one idea and they move it forward. We need people like that. Some people can take two ideas and move them forward. I'm not the person who goes completely deep, but my skill set, and other people have this too, is the ability to see the interconnectedness of things. Mm-hmm. So I'm not going to be the one who's going to figure out if it's 2.5 kilowatts versus 3.1, and what difference does that make on the whole system? I don't care. But I'm the one who will say, why aren't we using that with that?
Exactly. Yeah. Why aren't we looking at that in relation to this? Because to me, they're related, and that's the way I work too. I work very much looking at a holistic framework. I'm always about building, okay, you got the foundation, which is, like you said, I don't really care about how many kilowatt hours. That's my foundation. What I care about is the frame, how are we building the structure? Right. And I think that's, that's a whole different way of thinking for a lot of people.
It's extremely difficult. It can be taught. We don't realize it's a skill set that you can be taught.
Yep.
I ran a rock quarry when I was younger, and John Gillespie's passed away. John was phenomenal with me. There's a long story how I got the job, but on my first job, he decided I got an offer of a job, and before he was ready to walk out, and I said, I have some questions for you. Now, he just gave me a job and money. And I said, I have some questions for you. And so he answered questions. He said they weren't great questions, but for about an hour. Mm-hmm. And he decided he was going to put me on a rotation. So the first place I went was to the transportation. And I went in and watched them transport trucks and how they set them up and how they dispatched them and how they were able to build them through that dispatching system. And then he put me in a scale house. Terrible, hot job. I mean, I was no air conditioning, sweating as can be. I had to sleep on a table overnight. So one truck, we had 250 trucks a day going through. I worked as a scale house to measure the stone. I worked in all sorts of places. Mm-hmm. One day he came up, he said, do you know why I'm doing this? And I said, no. He says, I want you to see the whole system because one day hopefully you'll run this place. Stupid move. I didn't say yes. Um, but he was teaching me the interconnectedness. So when someone ordered something in dispatch and then they dispatched it, and when the scale house came and said, this is how much it cost, and then the quality of the stone, which there is quality of stone, where does that come from? And I learned a lot from him, but he
Yeah.
saw the interconnectedness. And we're not taught interconnectedness anymore. We're not taught
No,
about the multidisciplinary, and people think they're great at it, but they're not.
but they're not. Yeah. Yeah. In fact, I was going to do a chart, but then I'm like, that's too much, for this. But I did have,
For us, for our
yeah,
conversation.
yeah, yeah, because I was looking at that and I actually just wrote it down simply. So
Sure.
traditional thinking, and I'll create like a really simple slide.
Sure.
And that's what I was going to do. But traditional thinking is protect assets, protect infrastructure, protect society, right? I mean, that's like our kind of where we're at with this with the resilience model, right?
Yeah.
But a systems architecture approach to solving resiliency starts with the people, right? Governance, which you mentioned, information, critical infrastructure, communities, recovery, adaptation, and resilience. So that's the shift. You know, it,
Can I help a little bit?
yeah, sure, sure. I mean, I was just kind of
No.
problem
That's good.
solving last night, and I was super tired, and I said, I better put
No,
to
this
rest
is
for I go.
fabulous. This is fabulous. So, you remember Sesame Street?
Oh, I love Sesame Street. Yeah,
Okay.
all of us grew up on it.
You still watch it.
Oh yeah,
Remember, one of these things is not like the
like
other.
the
Can you
other. Yeah,
tell?
yeah, yeah, yeah.
One.
Critical thinking,
So,
actually, for the kids.
okay. So you put people, governance,
Hmm.
infrastructure, communication, community, resilience. They're not all the same.
No.
You need to have a uniform block for that block.
Yep.
Do you understand? So, and then you can say that community and people. So, what does that mean?
Hmm.
Words mean a lot. We don't realize how much. If I a word means, if I say to you, um, "I am challenged" or "I'm distressed," using two very difficult words, you treat me differently
Hmm.
because the words mean something. So, in this case, uh, what you're saying is a system architecture. So that's probably more about governance model. It's more about the plans. That would be, I'd have to think it through. Yet they all should be the same. I think you understand that
Yeah, yeah,
construct is that,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
and they're not. So you used traditionals, protect the assets, protect the infrastructure, protect the society. That's what I wrote. But the systems architecture is starting with in paid to think. I call it the desired outcome. We have this belief we start with strategy. Never start with strategy.
No.
Strategy is too late. When people say, well, what's our plan, you're
Yeah.
too late. You have to solve for what's our desired outcome,
Right.
not our plan, not our goal, not our objectives. What's the desired outcome? That's what you have to solve for first, and most people can't do that well. And not it's just because we haven't been taught it. Then you decide what's your strategy. Strategy is big picture. Want to transform how we live on Earth. That's it. Because we could
Yeah.
be working on how plants survive. We could be working on humanity taking over the world. We could be doing that. Then we have another layer that people don't think about, which is called a macro tactic. A macro tactic is something that you would say you would do, but it doesn't have the details. So, for example, I say, we have to put a box to the roof and a door on the moon. That's our thing. We have to have four
Yeah.
faces on the moon. Okay, but I have no plans. Then we have tactics. What are the things we have to do to get there? And I think systems architecture fitting in that is missing. What are we looking? What's our desired outcome? Where are we starting from?
Yeah.
And that would be, how would you answer that today? If you were to say, I'm going to solve, let's take resiliency word out of the mix. How do you solve, what would you say is your desired outcome?
Desired outcome.
Of all the work, everything you're going to do.
A nirvana.
Oh, nirvana.
Nirvana
Okay.
would be if we do lose power, a family is prepared for at least, X amount of time, that we've we've had enough backup equipment that if anything terrible happens, we can bring in um, components to fix it. Right now, if we lose a transformer, it's like 3 to 5 years to get one. That's unacceptable.
Mhm.
Things like that. So supply chain would be supply chain management, manufacturing. I mean, it's so complex. You start drilling. That's why I started doing this. I'll send them. I'll put the slides together
I'd
for you.
love to
And
see it.
I just got overwhelmed. I just said I'm just going to go to bed. Good
So,
night.
so let me share with you what you did is you dropped out a desired outcome. You went to goals and you
Yeah.
went to macro tactics. For example, replacement of transformers, which is a 2 to 3 year timeline, and we have already learned that we could take out the entire United States grid with just 50 special forces individuals who shoot at transformers, and they don't even have to be. Those are great, but we could actually just pay 50 groups of crazy people to just shoot at installations, and that would
Exactly.
be enough to
They
take
can
them
just go
down.
down the East River.
Right? We could
Really.
just
I
do that.
mean, but
Yeah. So I would say that my desired outcome is something more in the line of worldwide society can thrive through any condition.
yeah.
Now, that's not good. That's a really tough one because I don't have enough direction. It's not solid for me. But if I was to say society could thrive through any condition, you are talking about disasters and post disaster.
Hmm.
We don't have the transformers. Mine would be, why do we even need transformers ever again?
Yeah.
Mine would be when people talk about the energy grid. I learned this, I think, through Steve and others, and I did research from there. The reason we have 110 in the United States and the reason we have electrical grid that we have is that when they built the Niagara Falls Dam, they needed to pay for it. So they started to sell the electricity that came off the dam. We should all, wherever it's possible, we should have geothermal. And it should be put right into every single household when they sign their mortgage. For $10 a month or $20 a month, a geothermal system is put in. It costs $25,000 over the course of 20 years, about 30 years of paying for your home. And now we have heat and cold all the time. We have that. And so
Right.
that to me, and we don't because the road construction industry example. We need people paying for utilities. We can't help people to build the geothermal. That would be terrible. But why don't we mandate? Solar is going to take a long way to go, and we have to put huge farms up, and there's a bunch of challenges with it. But I'm giving one example. What if we reshaped using geothermal? Because I think I might be wrong, but upwards of 30 to 50% of all energy on the planet is used to heat and cool homes.
Yep.
So just imagine if, and we just filed a patent on this. Imagine when uh, a data centers have to dissipate heat. What if the data center was used in an abandoned mine below the surface, so it's now resilient to EMPs, it's resilient to strikes to some degree.
Right.
That data center, but it gets hotter as you go down, but it's down just a little bit. The geothermal is used as an energy source to be able to pump the water that needs to be pumped, but the water is pumped to cool it up towards the surface
Hmm.
where it gets a little cooler and comes back down, and on and on and on and on and on. So now we're creating systems loops that take away the need for 30 to let's say it's a low 20% of all energy used on this planet. That could be coal, it could be natural gas, it could be wood that's being used. Imagine if we didn't have any of that.
Exactly. And add to that the ability for every household to create its own water from the air. And that technology exists right now. And
So
basically, there is no utilities. Water and your power is is at really at the localist level, your home. I mean, now That would be ideal.
So let it exist. It's a technology that um, can take it out of the air. Why isn't it out there?
It's just starting to actually be viable. It's still very expensive. So a unit, which is probably the size of a transformer, I don't know how big it is, $30,000 still.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we
But
have a cost factor.
mhm,
Solving for the for Beyond Earth might do help that. We have a cost factor. The challenges we have, again, Earth is hard, space is harsh, Earth is hard. We have politics, we have capitalism, we have material challenges, we have, I mean, there's just so many of them. So the plan has to be, how do you sell this? What markets do you bring it to? How do you show that success rate? But it's not going to be ubiquitous. It's not going to be universal. So maybe Denmark or Sweden and Norway might use it because they come at things a little differently. But we're not going to see that in Australia, Singapore, and in South Africa. So that has to be part of the plan. And normally, what people say is, there's this great invention. Yeah, but you need more than that. That's that interconnected set of thinking. So we
right.
just came up with two things that could solve or address. They won't solve because you can't solve it forever. But I just showed you how geothermal can reduce the energy consumption on the planet. There's no off gases either, so there's less going into the atmosphere. And we are also solving water challenges, and the world is struggling for water, and we're
Exactly.
going to continue to.
Yeah,
Now,
and that's what I'm trying to do. Is this is why I was so excited to have you on the podcast, because I'm just trying to address the problem. Going back to really my NASA days, because we'd get problems that had never been solved, and so we'd sit in a room and try to figure it all out, right? From networking supercomputers to writing, you know, we'd get a new printer, and it's like, okay, but you got to understand, it's not as plug and play. Everyone's spoiled today. This Back then there was no plug and play. You're talking. You got a printer. You had to write the code. For all the
my
batching
first
jobs, you had to write the code to batch all the jobs that were being sent to the printer and all that stuff. That didn't exist. They would just give you a piece of equipment, and you'd have to, figure it out. So
So you know what a TRS-80 is?
yeah, yeah, that
Yeah,
back old memories. Yeah, go, but
it's that big. It had a basic screen on it.
hmm
I had a TRS-80, and in my computer class, the teacher said to us, "Nobody touched that device over there. That's called a floppy disk."
yeah, exactly.
5.25 inch drives. So yes, I remember those days.
Yeah.
Can I help you with language that might be useful to you?
Yes, of course.
Okay.
And
If I was to say to you, if someone walked up to you and says, "I have a problem," how do you feel? Like, "I have a problem, Maria." How do you feel?
I'd probably go, okay, well, why don't you share your problem with me?
Well,
I
but
wouldn't,
you,
because how I feel is irrelevant to their problem. That's the way I
but
would.
someone comes up. But when here, it'll help you just
Okay,
in
okay.
the sense of
Yeah, yeah.
someone comes up and says, "I got a problem." You're saying exactly. I don't know if I want to help. You got your own things. We got things. So you reacted in the way I expected. Someone walks up to you and says, "I've got an opportunity." How do you feel?
I would say that almost exactly the same thing. Well, if you want to share your opportunity, why I'm all ears.
Okay.
And based on what I hear, I'll tell you how I feel about it.
Okay. So you answered those very differently, just so you know. The first one was a reaction of, "I've got my own problems. I've got my own scenarios. I'll listen to yours, but I don't know how I'm going to be able to help you." The opportunity was, "I get a lot of opportunities, and I'm going to gauge if it's really an opportunity." So a problem, people lean back, and a opportunity, people are skeptical. I
Mhm.
eliminate the word problem. I don't use it as a general. So I use the word challenge. So if I say to you, "I have a challenge," How do you think?
The first thing out of my mouth would be, I'm up for any challenge. I like
There you
challenge,
go.
you know?
People lean into the word challenge.
Hmm.
They don't lean into the others. So
No,
if you notice, it's called the 6 mega challenges because you can't solve them. You can
right,
address, adapt, and evolve to them. You can't. And if you look, read all the writing, if you see the word problem, it's specifically used because of that. Because problem is just a word that people avoid. So if you want to get more engagement, the word challenge is a much stronger word. I've got a
right.
challenge. The challenge is this. And when I teach and when I help people to understand that construct, they find themselves saying problem a lot. Like I recorded one person in an hour like 23 times, 24 times had said the word problem.
Pro-
Change it to challenge.
Yeah, change it to challenge. Thank you.
Change
Very
the language to challenge. It's a small thing, sorry, but
it's,
I'm
no, and
I'm
it
very
actually is a big deal because I used to be an avid rock climber. And one of the
no.
things that attracted me to rock climbing was the challenge, right?
Mhm.
Because sometimes I wouldn't make it to the top of the climb, you know, and then I remember where I last left off. And so the next time I went back to that particular climb, I'd say, that was the handhold that, I fell on or whatever. I lost my, I lost my foot uh, positioning and I fell. So, fall. Hopefully you don't fall. You get your belayer will catch.
Yes, so someone's
Yeah,
taking care of
yeah,
it.
yeah. But yeah, and until one day I would get to the top, you
Because
know?
challenges inspire you to move forward.
Yep.
And so I have, if you read Paid to Think, I gave you a copy of the book, and I
Yes,
can give,
I'm in the
I
process.
okay, I've given, I can give your listeners if you are interested. You can. Do you have the PDF there?
I put a link
You
to
can
your
look.
Amazon
Oh, okay.
in the chat and
Yeah.
in the description of this video.
Okay.
Yep.
In the book, I was very very conscious of words, so you won't see problem a lot. You'll see challenge.
Hmm.
Uh, there's also here's another wording thing. We always talk about companies. People talk about companies. You know, a company does this, a company does that. But if you're in a nonprofit, you have to translate that. What does it mean for me? So, is a nonprofit a company?
Is a nonprofit a company? Well, yeah. It's got a CEO. I mean, it's got the structure.
A nonprofit, typically nonprofit people don't see themselves as a company. How about military? Are they a company?
I would say, I mean, by all definitions, if you're looking at it, removing the sector, right? Nonprofit, enterprise, government. Yes.
Okay, so the
Look,
average person who's reading something is profit, nonprofit, government, military, and education. A company is a company. A nonprofit, you work for an organization. A military, you work for an organization. Government, you work for an organization. Education, you work for an organization. The reason I'm sharing that is language is so important that even when Paid to Think was written, we didn't use the word company because the person reading it is now saying, does that apply to me? And they have to do a translation to say, will that work in what I do? But if you say organization, it means that when we wrote it, we were conscious of the fact that it has to fit across profit, nonprofit, government, military, and education. So wording is important. And that's all I
yeah.
want to get across.
Yes. Words have power.
Words have power.
Words have power.
So
Yeah.
yeah,
So,
the resiliency is a challenge. It's a challenge, but it's not the challenge that we don't have the tack. It's not a challenge that it can't be solved. The challenge is figuring out what is the best ultimate, the positive opposite ultimate end. What is the thing we have to do to get the right people on board, to find the right opportunities, to find the right challenges, to build things out. And unfortunately or fortunately for my wife, I selected the fact that if we in fact build for the moon, again, I'm not a space person, we've come up with the autonomous robotic mining. We've gone up, we have new materials. We've had 3 patents we filed on new materials. One can go from 800C to 1600C. That's the difference between going at Mach 5 to Mach 8. Big difference.
Yeah.
We've come up with a new material that potentially could be used to drop about 30 to 40% of the radiation that can happen, but it's also resilient to micrometeorites and like a Whipple shield. It's a weave fabric. We're working on trading rare earth materials. We're working on grocery to fulfill grocery stores and how they behaviors that have to change so we have more food. So we're actually working on them in a very, very, very different light than what I see in resiliency. And we shouldn't have to protect our data centers. We have uh, we have over between 300,000 to 500,000 abandoned mines in the United States. There's 1.2 abandoned mines in the world. Why don't we just put a data center underground?
Exactly.
Why don't we just put it underground? Then you don't have EMP issues. You don't have radiation. You don't have micrometeorites. You don't have
You
people
don't have
can't.
it
Why don't we
taking up acres of good farmland.
acres of good farmland? Why don't we use geothermal? Then we don't have issues with power, and we don't have issues with reliance on and worldwide. We
Yeah.
don't have reliance. Now everybody can't get geothermal. It's not so simple. But a lot of our challenges go, or our solutions that we think go way past answering the baseline.
Hmm.
And that's where we started. We started off with components. And the questions that people ask are component oriented. How do we fix our transformers? How do we fix our substations? How do we fix our networks? How do we fix our cybersecurity? We need those people. We need them to be worked on. We now have to look at the interconnected systems that work with them, but we also have to look at societal needs. And if we get a 3 degrees C or 2 degrees C change in weather, Northern Africa is 230 million people. Where are they going to go if it goes up more? What's going to happen to Italy and Spain and the countries across Europe if the heat becomes extreme? Where do they go next? What
Hmm.
happens in the United States if, in fact, the Colorado River becomes even worse? The lake in the Midwest, northern part of that's drying up.
Yeah.
Canada has a wildfire out. Our skies are somewhat yellow.
Yeah.
Now, people are happy it's 5 degrees less in temperature Fahrenheit, but it's still a fire. So above the fire is the sun, and it's probably 97 degrees.
Yeah.
So
Above.
we didn't get it hit us, but you're inhaling smoke.
Yeah.
So we have to
Yeah.
rethink a lot.
Yeah. There's a couple of so one of our viewers, actually, he was a guest on the podcast, brilliant engineer. He says he has a business model for resources, and you spoke about it's getting the right people in a think tank kind of environment. I know we can solve this. This isn't that difficult. I don't believe it is, but we just need to think a little bit differently than we are thinking right now.
Uh, the so let's go to the resources. We don't have a challenge with resources. And there's a video on our website at mirth.com, mearth.com. We're not going to mine on the moon. We are not going to mine on the moon. Let me repeat that. We are not going to be mining on the moon. And it's an hour and 20-minute video. I've had people in the Beyond Earth ecosystem, one specifically, I won't mention his name. He's very, very famous. He called me up. He said, "What are we going to do? The Earth is 8,000 miles wide. We go less than 4,000 feet deep. The moon and the Earth are made of the exact same materials, and we need an infrastructure that includes just a lithium plant at $2 billion. We're going to go to the moon in parts per billion and try to pull something out in extreme cold, extreme heat, and far away that we measure in kilograms, the weight that we
Right.
transport. We drop 100 billion tons of rock. So what we need to do, my take is, we need to bring people like yourself. Mirth Society is what we're kind of. I guess I'm launching it today. First time ever talking about it. And whoever signs up first will be person 001. We're bringing together people. We want them to get involved in looking at the projects we've got,
Mhm.
and then we help people try to find a home. We don't ask people to do anything. I'm not good at asking people. We show them what we're working on. We want to see what they're excited about. And tonight we have a team, our AI team. One of the guys, you ever get a text message from Amazon that says your package has arrived? He came up with that and built that for all of Amazon.
Wow.
Uh, he's the guy leading that part of the project. The things that we're working on are really cool. And if you can see the interconnectedness,
Hmm.
we say, if we solve that, then we solve that. If we solve that, we solve that. And I sent you that longer video. Did you get to watch it, the hour and 43
No,
minute
I
one?
haven't. No, I was like spent most of my weekend thinking about all that, what we were going to talk about today, and just kind of framing our, discussion. I didn't just want to just throw stuff, say, yeah, why aren't we? Yeah, I wanted to really think about it. And so I'm going to start catching up because after today, I got more free time on my hands. But
I appreciate you wanting me on, and I appreciate your thinking. I think when you watch the video that's on our video section, it's an hour and 43 minutes long. As I told you, people tell me they watch it in one sitting. I just did it in one. I did it in one sitting. We have to reframe our challenges. And I think if you're really interested in addressing these challenges,
yeah,
don't ask the question about resilience. Sorry.
right,
If you ask the question about resilience, you're going to get resilience answers. How do we stop a car how do we make sure that someone doesn't get hurt in an accident? Don't have an accident.
right.
It's not complicated, but you're solving for the wrong thing. So if you solve for a different challenge, remember I started, the smartest person in the room is the person who asks the best questions of themselves and of others.
Right.
And I think you'll have fun with Paid to Think, and I think you'll have fun with some of the things that we're working on.
Yeah,
Were
definitely.
there any other questions?
Yeah,
Because I can't see
actually,
it.
Kishore in the chat says, how to think outside the box, question mark. I will ask myself, what if, question. So he's, again,
Okay, during the time. Great. Now I hope, and what's the name? Kishore?
Kishore. Yeah.
Kishore. I hope now Kishore could see that you actually, great innovators, think inside the box. So when they're in a meeting or they're faced with a challenge, they say, I know the right person to call. Or, oh, no, I know the material to use. Oh, there's a vendor that does that. Oh, I read a paper on it. When was that? When was that? But it's in the box. Now, for me, having worked in over 50 countries around the world, when I see a perspective and someone says something, I say, I've lived in Asia. Oh, then you know. Or I've lived in Luxembourg. Oh, then you're familiar with it. We had a company in I had a call yesterday. The guy's he's talking and had a very American accent. And I couldn't I said, something's off. I said, where are you from? He says, I'm South African, but I moved there when I was young and I moved back. And I said, I could sense the accent. And then I talked about Cape Town and Joburg and there's a kumbaya that happens
Right.
when you have that. And my background is all sciences. So those experiences in nanotechnology, aerospace, motorcycles, and the I didn't bring up that one. I think we talked about earlier about it. What was the solving for the disaster? It was the disaster of banking, of floods, which you and I talked about. So let me just bring that up because it just came up. One of the things that Maria and I were talking about before the conversation was that people put a lot of money. Why aren't we solving some of these challenges? And I was at an event. It was for the banking industry in the northwest of the U.S. And while when I go to an event, it doesn't matter where it is in the world, I will often sit and hear other conversations. I go to other presentations because I do what's a program called Consulting from the Stage. I actually do my research. My presentations are one-off. And they're all talking, there's about 30 of them, how much money they spent, 20,000, 10,000, 50,000 on these disaster recovery systems for the banking. And they just had a major flood and everybody was complaining because the banks were devastated.
Mm-hmm.
And I raised my hand. I do this. You just need to hit them once because it opens up for their minds for possibilities. And I said, let me explain something to you. When a flood comes, and it's a big flood, and this was a big flood, the person has to drive 14 miles to your bank. They're going to go there, read a manual that's 400 pages long, and they're going to shut down the bank for you. No, they're going to look at their family, look at their car, grab what food they can, and be on their way. If you have a system that's dependent on that for a disaster, you will always have a disaster.
Exactly.
And I love it because it's, who are you? Well, what are you talking about? I said, you wasted all your money. It should be 2 pages and it should be automated wherever it should be. And I've done that over and over again because I'm an outsider. I wasn't a banking person. I didn't know the policy. I didn't know the rules you were supposed to follow. I didn't know you're supposed to pay these consultants to do that. I just sat there and said, you want your bank to be safe? You got to do something that's automated. And they were shocked. So it's not complicated. So hopefully that thinking outside the box now, Kishore, is helpful. Fill your brain with poetry, fill your brain with travel, fill your brain with meeting interesting people, fill your brain with all sorts of things. Because that roofing that I do, that gives me a lot of information. That I have a chop saw, I have a compound miter box, I have plumbing tools, I have titanium hammers because I work with Tektronix, who owns Dirt Devil, Ryobi, AEG,
Okay.
Milwaukee.
Yeah, yeah.
I work with them, and so I have the tools. So does that help? So what's the next one? Is there another one?
There was, well, Dave, David, two genius named David. David Moran actually is he's a genius. He's working on micronuclear reactors.
Okay.
And he actually has a working prototype, if not
Cool.
more than a prototype, but a working.
Wait. That's a scary thing to have a working micronuclear reactor, because I think there's a little bit of being illegal. I don't know how often you can have one in your backyard.
Well, I don't think he's got it in his backyard. He's got a company, but maybe I can put the two of you
Yeah, I'd love to.
together. Yeah, he's
What
brilliant.
did he say?
He's brilliant. Let's see. He's coming. He's writing. So edge AI control. I think he was talking earlier about. And he says tunnel quantum key distribution. I think this is something that you were talking about. I know you were going so fast. I was going to try to.
I'm sorry.
That's okay. That's okay. And he says, agree. We have a problem with greed. And then he says, CTG, another great show. Okay, be sure to share and like. Yeah, he's someone I think that you should.
I'd love to
connect
talk to
with.
him. So
Mhm.
the word greed, it's I would society has always expanded. That's how we've grown. We went out west. We in the United States went out west. People went east when they were in Europe. There was always an expansion, and the society saw hope through the possibilities of expansion. Here's the challenge: what is a young kid, a 25-year-old, if they want to see something expand out? Tons of people have been to the top of Mount Everest. We've been to the bottom of the oceans. What do we aspire to? What do we aspire to? What's next? So society needs something else. It's missing something. And there's Andy Aldrin, Buzz Aldrin's son, does not believe, he said he didn't believe much in space. And our first call was terrible. Absolutely terrible. We were at it.
Mhm.
And I said, when we're done, when do you want to meet again? And he said, why? This was a terrible call. I said, if I could talk to you, I could talk to anybody. He has 500 schools around the world that he's teaching about Beyond Earth. And I told him about this concept, mirth, and what does it mean? And he was traveling up and down the coast of Florida. And he called me and he said, I can't get mirth out of my head. How do we fill mirth? Humans fill space, our homes, our societies, our communities, and space. The challenge is with greed is there's nothing left for often people to pursue. And we've kind of lost track of the sense of being that adventurer, that builder, that creator. So in Project Moonut, we call them builders. So we have a builder's block. There's a whole group of builders, and they're defined. And there are builders who build philanthropic. There are builders who build strategy. There's builders who build infrastructure. And we're looking to bring the builders of the world together. Not for the economic, because you want to build. And I can see, Maria, you're a builder. You just want to build something, and you're frustrated because you don't know where to apply that building. And this David guy, who seems to be very, very smart, David wants to build, and he wants to build a system that allow people to have energy. That's phenomenal. We need to bring builders together. Builders need to unite in a way that's different than it is today.
Exactly. With that, David, it's been such a pleasure. And I'm going to go look on your website and look where I'm going to finish this. I was actually, as I was thinking about this whole podcast, I was actually thinking, you know, I've gotten into writing lately. This is for some odd reason. I've written a couple, like 3, 4 papers since the beginning of the year, just because I feel like I have to download stuff out of my brain and write it down. But anyway, as I was putting just together the framework, and I was like, you know, this could be a paper in of itself, or maybe we can collaborate here on and invite David Moran too. The other day, David in the chat on developing that different approach to resiliency. You know, just looking
And
at it
again,
differently.
I redesign the word resiliency because
Yeah,
the
yeah,
word resiliency is it's more thriving. We're asking, how does society thrive again?
yeah, yeah.
You know,
Building
how
thriving
do you
society.
how do you stop getting sick?
Right.
You know,
Right.
how do you remain healthy? That's kind of the
Yeah,
differentiation.
yeah. And
So on the website I checked, and I'm crossing my fingers. It's called the Mirth Society under Get Involved. So actually, why don't I do a quick screen share? This might be useful if that's okay with you. Can I do a quick screen share? I can't hear you. I can't hear you.
about that. Let me know when you have it up, and I'll switch scenes.
I've got it. I've
Oh,
got it
okay,
up.
okay. So let me switch scenes. Okay, and let me bring it in. Did you hear? Did you hit screen share in
I'm
the
doing it right
interface?
now, and I'm selecting the window and there share. There you go.
All right. Let me assign it to. There we go. It's on.
Okay,
Yep.
here's a quick thing. A lot of people, the hour and 43 minutes was a little challenging, and I had some people say something. So I did this 7-minute into overview. You can read through this. These are the innovations that came from space for people thinking about beyond Earth. And here's our builders stack: legacy builders, capital builders, frontier builders, experience builders. So we've got a bunch of them. And then we've had all sorts of organizations that have worked with us. And if you're interested, we're redoing some of this, but there's been a lot of people. We have another 200 people to add to this that have been helping us in different ways. And if you help, and Maria, if you're involved, we can put your logo down here with everybody else. So that happens there. We have some stories. We have about another 20. These are the stories of people who've been involved and have helped us. So here's Bruce Pittman, where the story started. So we've got only about 15 up here now, but we've got more that are coming. Some of the things you might want to look at is the 40-year plan. I'm not going to go into it now. This is not opening on. I've got to reset something on my system. There's a great 3-dimensional model in there. Here's Mirth. This is the Mirth line. This is the Mirth activity. That's our symbol Mirth. So you might want to go through the Project Luna classifications. Look on a big screen. It's
Yep.
crazy. I don't know if it'll work here because I've had this challenge. He's doing some new things. Let's see if it comes up. And then I'll show you where you can sign up or see a few other pieces. He just uploaded a whole bunch of things. And I've been having challenges with Mozilla. I should have done it on, it opens perfectly on, whatchamacallit, on Chrome. And this is some of the work that we're involved in. If you want to watch our videos, here's the asteroid mining I talked about. Here
Yep.
is the story that you're looking for. We've got another on YouTube. We have 150 videos, but only about 20 released. Here's our podcast series. We've got 2. And then get involved. I don't know if this is going to work. You're going to try it. We just put it up. I said, put it up for today.
Mm-hmm.
And so we want you to click what type of builder you think you are. You could be multiple. Tell us if you don't like this at all. How would you like to contribute? These are just some of the things, and fill it out. And we're manually going to send you the email. But that's where it is on the page. And it actually opened up to a new page, which is interesting. We've got a new one with graphics being done. So, and if we're a nonprofit like a lot, so we take cryptocurrency, wire transfer, we take donor advice fund, and the rest. So there's a lot here. But this here, can I open it up on my Chrome? Because I'm dying here.
Yeah, yeah. Go ahead. It just reshare, and I will.
I'll reset it. So you stop the share. Can you
Yeah,
do that, or do I stop that? Stop
yeah.
sharing. Mirth. I'm hoping it works now. So now I could be embarrassed. But I just went over. I told them I had a challenge with this. And Chrome tab. Let's see. The grid podcast is you. So is this, let me close this. I want to make sure it's closed so it won't even show. Close tabs. Okay, that's the one. Share.
Okay. All right. Hang
Let's
on.
see if it works.
Yep, it's up. Good.
Okay.
Oh, no,
I'm gonna,
hang on. Hold on.
yeah.
Okay. There we go. It's up. Oh, and I lost you. Let's see.
To represent is the Earth is, this is in 2014. The Earth is talking to each other. But as we move forward with Project Moonhot, we start to see there's nobody on the moon still, but the Earth is communicating through Project Moonhot and Mirth, and Mirth Foundation we're changing our name to. These are innovations that are starting to happen on Earth, nothing on the moon. Then we're going to eventually get 8 people. We have the most advanced and detailed plans of anybody on the planet for the moon. And Maria, you could sign it under, see it under NDA. It's blown. I mean, the U.S. Space Force says they've never seen anything like it. Most advanced. Dan Dumbacher, American Institute for Astronautics and Avionics. So we'll have 8 people, then 90, then 578, then 1,644. But the innovations on Earth are where the important things are happening. All these innovations start to impact us, and you can click on these things. Now we have the Mirth ecosystem, the Mirth economic system and ecosystem. We're selling from the moon to the Earth and the Earth to the moon. 90 people. We're communicating with each other. Then we go a little bit more innovations happening, and we have 578. Then we go to 1,644, and now we live where we really live, where you live within Mirth. So that's cool. The last one I'll give you is this, and then anybody can go wherever they want, is this one is amazing. You know Dennis Wingo?
Have I ever been where?
Dennis Wingo. Do you know Dennis
No,
Wingo?
I don't know Dennis. Mm-mm.
Okay, Dennis was on NASA Ames facility. I went to his place, and I didn't understand where he worked. I'm not going to go into it here because I'd have to show you. But if you go into it, this system on a bigger screen, this goes up. This tells you what's happening on Earth. And you can put that away, and you can open on each one. This is the Project Moonhot classification system, so you know where people work. You ask them, where do you work? Here's the International Space Station moving at the speed of the International Space Station. Here's the Tiangong traveling at the International Space Station. So now we're on Earth, and Earth is 1. Earth is geography. So this is a data set piece. Then we go to atmosphere. Again, if you want, you can go up and down. You go to atmosphere. Then we go to low Earth orbit. We're following it along here. Then we go to medium Earth orbit. Then we go to high Earth orbit. Then we go to the space between the moon and the Earth. Then we go to the moon, around the moon, the orbit around the moon. And then we go to the moon. So if you wanted to click on Apollo 15 or 1 or Apollo this or that, it tells it. And this can all spinnable.
Oh,
so you can play with it. You can see the Mars in the background. Then we go out one more, and we're going to the Mirth line. Mirth line is 297,000 miles out. It's where we live. That's our geography of our home. And that is our future. Maps have changed. Now, people say, you don't have all of it. We don't have a map of our galaxy. We don't have a map of when we need a map for our community, we don't have one for the world. When we have a map of our state or where we don't have, this works for this. So it doesn't fit every need. Then we go out to Mars. We're not involved with Mars, but Mars is important. So we go out. This is where we've landed the Opportunity and Viking, and we have others in there. We go all the way to Phobos, and then we go to Deimos, and we go out. So we have the project. This is the Project Moonhot classification system. So we want to, here's the short story. I'm with Dennis. I say, what do you do? He says, I'm a space company. And I said to him, what is a space company? And he says, well, I work in space. Mm-hmm. And I said, okay, wait, I'm confused. You work in space. I don't get it. So I took out a piece of paper and I drew this. I do exactly that in less than a minute. And I said, where do you work? And where does Virgin work? He said, oh, Virgin works 1 and 2. And I said, aspirationally 3. He said, aspirationally 3. I said, where do you work? He said, oh, I work 1 through 8. And I said, okay, I don't know what you do. So 8 is the moon. I said, what do you do? Show me a picture. And he fired up this big screen, and there was a transport vehicle. And I said, oh, you're a logistics firm. And he looks at me and he says, I'm a logistics firm in 1 through 8. Well, think about it. There are people working on water filtration for the moon or for Mars. We can't find them today because they're in Bangladesh and Sri Lanka, and they're in Denmark and Sweden and Germany, and we can't find them
Yeah.
because they're working on beyond Earth systems. Well, why don't they integrate? This becomes a data play. So now you tag yourself. Where do you work? I work on one. I'm only on Earth. I work on two. Space is a geography. It's not an industry. I work in five. And now we can aggregate the world of builders who are working on advanced tech and say, how many people are working on water filtration on the moon or Mars? And we can find ecosystems. No one has that. And then we patented this. We will license it for free to people who want to use it as a data point. But this allows us to have a geography that we're working in and a data set to be able to find individuals.
Yeah. So I have some of the pieces. So,
Okay.
with people who are working on water purification, water creation, people like David or your geothermal, they have, multiple types of, energy solutions available. And, it's just putting this all together and presenting it in like a cohesive, here's, not that one, this is, it's a solution. The solution may be multifaceted is the way I look at it. Right.
It is.
Yeah. So,
That's
but
what we started with.
here's a framework.
Right.
How,
So you can't give somebody Ozempic and solve the challenge. Well, the Earth can't be solved with cryptocurrency. The Earth is not going to be solved with one thing. So simultaneously, over the next 40 years, we have to solve multiple activities. One of them is to 30% of the world's population under the age of 30 believes there's no future in the future. So imagine owning a company of 100 people, 30 of them believe there's no future at the company. You'd have a lot of challenges. Imagine 30% of the people under the age of 30 believing that. That's an issue. So we have to change both the paradigm shifting to possibilities, and we have to change the way we innovate.
Yep. I just want to leave this place a better place than A, I found it in, and B, that my grandchildren, great grandchildren, and beyond, will have a much brighter outlook than what we're looking at this day and
You
age.
will love our video because everything we're doing is a 40-year timeline.
Yeah.
And we end in 2063. That's the end of our work. And it's about redefining how we live on this planet over the next 40 years. And hopefully, when you see the video, you'll start to get the construct behind it. But we're looking for people to unite with us, help us, show us, bring your talent, bring your skills. We love great ideas, and there's been challenging people, but we work with them to make things happen. I think this, so we have the Merce Society first thing. And we are looking for people like yourself who want to solve the bigger challenge. How do we create a future that's not resilient, but how do we create a future that's thriving?
Right. That's thriving. And not just here in America,
Everywhere.
Colombia,
Uh,
Africa.
I spoke Spanish with you. I,
Yeah,
I
yeah,
love
yeah.
Colombia. Uh,
Just everywhere, Argentina,
Everywhere.
you know,
There are amazing people in
Cape,
this world.
yeah, Cape Verde, which I never even heard of until the World Cup,
Mhm.
or Cabo. Yeah. It's like, where is
There's
that?
in Serbia, in Macedonia, in
Every,
Albania. I've worked with amazing people, and people will often make questions that are political. Will you work with throw it out? Will you work with China? And I said, are you asking me if I'll work with Chinese people? I lived in Hong Kong. I have a lot of Chinese friends. They're amazing. People say, well, will you work with Russian? I say, are you asking me if we'll work with Russian people? My grandfather was Belarusian Russian. I think I could work with myself. Are you asking me if I'll work with political figures? Well, that's a different question. But that's one individual or a group of individuals. Are you asking me if I'll work with people around the world? Absolutely. And we need to find them. We need to find builders.
yeah. Well, David, it has been an absolute pleasure, and we will circle back around. I'll send you an email with David's contact and introduce the two of you. But if anyone in the audience, or if you're viewing this later, if you have questions for David, please place them in the comments section of this video after the broadcast, and I'll make sure that your questions are attended to. I have placed all sorts of links to all of David's resources, his video, his books, his TED Talks in the description of this video, as well as in the comments section of the chat. So please subscribe, share, like this video. It will help us reach more people on this platform. And a big thank you to David. Thank you for joining us today, and to our grid warriors who tune in weekly and support the podcast. So if you enjoyed this episode, again, hit the thumbs up. And until next week, take care. Bye-bye.
Thank you for tuning in to the Grid Podcast Experience. This podcast was made possible by the Task Force on National and Homeland Security, a 501c3, and grid warriors around the nation. If you would like to support more content like this, please visit the Task Force website to donate. Your donations are tax deductible. A steadfast thank you to the following organizations dedicated to securing the American power grid against all hazards. Thank you to our grid warriors for their kind generosity and support. Thank you for watching. Like, subscribe, and comment to stay connected with the Grid Podcast.